once again, our directive is factor completely, which can vary a lot depending on every problem we've done has said factor completely, but has either been like just as greatest common factor or factors trinomials. We're going to start to combine certain factoring techniques together and recognizing what we should do. Remember, the first thing we should always look for is if there's a GCF. You'll notice that this problem right away falls apart and we can't do the double parentheses, double x's, the two binomials with an x just because that would give us an x squared. Not only do we have an x cubed now, but we also have a leading coefficient, which is going to change things. But if we look for greatest common factor first, you'll notice, 2 goes into everything. You'll notice that there's an x, right? My smallest exponent, as we established earlier. But something else that's unique is that negative in front. Whenever there's a negative leading coefficient, then make sure we have a negative GCF. And you'll see why here. If we make that a negative 2x, then what that's going to do is just like when we distributed negative, when we saw problems specific to this when we did our distribution, when I factor out a negative, just like my subtraction problems, it's going to change all of the signs. Because when I divide everything by that negative, it's going to give me a positive x squared, it's going to give me a negative 10x, and it's going to give me a positive 25. What's so critical about making that negative is that we have to have that x squared be positive. Once again, our next step, when we see that x squared, we're going to want to do the product of binomials, double x's. If that's a negative x squared, then that x and x wouldn't work. And by making one of them negative, we could get a negative x squared. But the problem is when we FOIL, one of them would be negative and one of them wouldn't. It's going to completely change our rules of the signs. But by factoring out a negative leading coefficient as a negative GCF, then what we would do is control our signs a lot better. Now, that negative GCF is going to be sitting in front for the entire rest of the problem. We're going to almost ignore it from here on out as we do our trinomial as a product of binomials. Now, when we see that positive 25, we know, all right, they're going to be the same sign. Either both positive or both negative. In this case, they need to both be negative because they have to add to be a negative number. We could do our table. We could go through all the work we did before. But what's going to be nice is when we have that 25, the numbers that multiply to 25 are 5 and 5, add to be 10. We're in good shape. Now still, we aren't complete. We factored it completely, but we haven't fully simplified what our factoring is. Something that we just need to eyeball, and you'll remember this when we did our binomial square last unit. When I have an x minus 5 times x minus 5, anything times itself is a square. The computer, Math Excel, is going to want to see x minus 5. There's nothing that's going to tell us that we need to recognize that or that it's going to be a square, that we just need to keep an eye out. And when we see these problems appear, we just need to be aware how the book's going to want us to simplify it, how we're going to need to set it up for Math Excel.